Hello, everybody. Welcome to Always Off Brand. We try and take e-commerce, retail. I don't even know what to call it anymore. Commerce. We simplify it. We make it fun, interesting, laugh, and learn. I'm one of your co-hosts, Scott Oshman. Thanks for coming in. Today's a special episode. We're bringing back an OG, ladies and gentlemen, an absolute OG. One of the 4.5 years ago. I don't even know how many episodes. This fella right here, ladies and gentlemen. In fact, he has his own sound effect. He has created his own flipping sound effect. Ladies and gentlemen, to the YouTube stage, everybody drink Jeremy Dodge.
Scott, it's so good to be back. Thanks for having me back on. I can't believe it's probably been 2 years, but might be my 5th time. I hope.
Has it really been 2 years since you? Come on.
Do I get a jacket like on SNL?
Yeah, you should get something. Hey, Jeremy Dodge, everybody drink. I mean, you have your own. I mean, it's your own sound effect. Nobody else has their own sound effect.
I don't know how that happened, but it makes me so happy every time I hear it.
Because you were on, and then basically we kept referencing Jeremy Dodge, and it became a joke. It's like everybody drink, you know. And then when I say Jeremy Dodge, everybody drink.
Well, yeah, it's fun when I'm mowing the lawn at like 10 a.m. and it's like everybody drink, and I'm like, it's too early, Scott.
So you've left your corporate brand, running the dominating the world of e-commerce and Amazon for some of the great brands, and now you hung out your own shingle, as they used to say, and you've been on the consulting wizardry side for how long? Is it 2 years?
2.5 years now. Yeah, time flies. I started my own consultancy, called it The Horse Consulting.
The Horse Consulting. I don't have a horse sound effect.
E-commerce is the Wild West. Like we used to say that. It's, I think, even more true than ever. But the cowboy rides the horse. Horse, they conquer the Wild West. They come back. Horse goes to the stable. Cowboy gets all the credit. So we're the horse. We do all the work and conquer this, uncharted terrain for our brands and clients. So it's mostly just me. It's kind of a collective. We've got a lot of subcontractors and freelancers that I bring in based on what the brand needs. But yeah, it's been a pretty wild journey after working on the brand side for 15 years. Now I found myself technically on the agency side and built it myself. But it's super cool to see brands in different industries at the same time and learning from one and applying it to another. So it's been great. Wild that it's gone so fast.
Yeah. So we had all these discussions about what we wanted to talk about real quickly. And unfortunately, Summer Jubilaire and Haley in the news. I thought Haley might be able to pull this off, but we are out of our normal recording schedule. So we popped off, and then Summer's just going to give me shit because she wasn't here. She's going to hear that this comes out, and then she's going to get pissed at me, which is standard. Anyway.
Yeah.
But here,
texted me last week. I was driving in the car. I listened to Always Off Brand as much as I used to. I used to be like every episode.
I know you were one of the faithful 38. I tell you.
You could see that Merrimack, Mass. has listened. I'm sure in your analytics, so you know whether I listen or not. But I had to drive in my car. It doesn't happen very often because I work in a shed in my backyard now, just like you do, Scott. And I got in my car to go to an appointment, and I turned on Always Off Brand. 10 seconds later, get a text message from Summer Jubilaire. I was like, what the hell is going on? And I was like, I'm not texting her back. I'm just going to call. You guys are ready to start recording. So here we are. That's how that happened. It's fate.
It is fate. But let me ask you the first question, because I actually have a couple people that let's just call it what it is, right? We're right or wrong. We could do a whole I could do a 47-minute Scotty O rant on why this is just happening and all that stuff. But there are a lot of layoffs. We are in the marketing and the agency and the company's brand side. There are layoffs on creatives, on this, that. There's the threat of AI, blah, blah, blah. And there's a couple people who've left brands, not of their own choice, like I said, and they are doing consulting. And then and this is where I wanted to get you, because you went through this exact experience. They're trying to, this is each person for everything, but they're just trying to decide, do I want to keep doing this working for myself consulting thing, or do I want to go back into brands? And what would your advice be to those people?
Yeah, I'm so happy to talk about this. It happened to me. I mean, if I go back to 2015, back to the good old days, like I don't think I could count on one hand like people that I knew that were ever laid off. And like since then, it's just like everyone's doing it. It's so hot right now to do layoffs.
It's hot. It's
So
trending.
I never saw it coming. I've usually been a high value, hard worker, and it's not always in your control. And unfortunately,
Exactly.
the company I was working for made a lot of bad decisions in a different part of the business, and we're preparing to sell to another investor. And so, strategically, you cut all the people with higher salaries, and so most of the company, was let go, and included myself. And so, but it's shocking, and I feel like anyone that's gone through it, it feels shitty, but it happens. And my first reaction was I took my snowboard and I hiked up and down the hill behind my house and got some energy and adrenaline out. And but then in the middle of that, I was like, I'm going back to my desk tomorrow, and like I'm still going to keep doing what I do. And I set a couple goals for myself, and I had the intention of going back and working at another brand, but fortunately I had a pretty healthy severance and had some time to think about it. So I set myself a goal that I'm going to try to talk to 50 different brands before I actually start applying and interviewing for my new role. I want to hear what's happening out there. I want to hear what categories and industries are succeeding and failing and struggling, and then make my decision. This is such a great opportunity. So had my Google sheet, started tracking and talking. And a lot of it was talking to old friends, people that I really enjoyed working with, and they've moved on to different brands. It's not like I talked to the CEO at every brand. And I'd just seen this Simon Sinek TED Talk about when you talk to people, ask them, how can you help them be more successful? It might be your employees, it might be your boss, whatever it is. And so the basis of all these conversations was, how can I help you be more successful? And the conversations that came out of that were so fruitful and valuable and wholesome. And, I wasn't selling myself as a consultant yet. But in that process, people started saying, actually, you know what? Like, I could probably use your help. Like, could you, this person's going to be out for a while. Can you fill in? Can you run this project? Can you help, audit our Amazon ads, our, D2C strategy, whatever it was. And nothing materialized right away. But in the process, I decided I'm going to pursue fractional work and string together a bunch of different contracts. And then I formed an LLC, and here I am 2.5 years later. And I'm kind of a half consultant, half full-time or full service agency, helping a couple brands with everything. And, but it's been really fulfilling. It's been great. And so hopefully I can inspire others out there that, fractional future, I think, is possible. And, we've seen it in the blue collar industry with Uber drivers and Instacart shoppers, and it could be true with white collar as well. And I think it's something that's worth pursuing for a lot of people.
Well, this has been going on for a long time. A lot of people the risk is whether you're a permanent employee at a brand, it doesn't really matter. There's no stability and there's always risk. My point is there's risk no matter what anymore, because things out of your control. And then on the consulting side, or if you're in the agency, pseudo consulting, whatever, I call it the Ferris wheel, because you have client, no choice of yours. Somebody could come in, they could sell, there's just a million different reasons. All of a sudden, hey, Jeremy, we need you. Hey, Jeremy, we don't need you. I mean, it's just the life you lead. You don't really control or own much.
That is so true. And that's what hit me the hardest when I got laid off, was I wasn't mad at myself for doing a bad job. I grew their sales 70% year over year. I knocked it out of the park. And it was another part of the business that failed that caused it to happen. What I was angry at myself was I was the only income source for my family of 5. So
yeah, I was gonna mention that. It's like, I don't want anybody listening to get like, oh, here's Jeremy. He lived by himself in an apartment, had no expenses except his phone and his car. No, you have a serious family.
Yeah, the company had moved me to Massachusetts, and later that year laid me off, and so in the process, my wife had quit her job. We had another kid, and so I'm like, shit, like, and
This
so
is like a serious oh shit moment.
yeah, but the foolish thing is thinking that that's okay to have one income source for a family of five, and um, having two jobs and two parents working is another solution to that. But for me, I thought, yeah, if I have 3 to 5 clients now, yeah, one's gonna fall off, I'll gain another one, and you're just kind of hedging your risk.
Yeah.
And but in the process, I found I really love this, working in different industries, and now we're picking up these full service clients, and I'm building a team around that, which has been so fulfilling. But yeah, it's risky to have all of your income coming from one source. And it feels a lot better doing what I'm doing. It's never worked harder in my life, but it feels good. And working out of the backyard in a shed, just like Scotty O.
There you go. I mean, it's not for everybody, and that's what you have to. My experience is the same. I was an agency guy. I grew up in the agency side. Then I went and go work the brand side, and for huge brands at a great time. It was an easy sales, but then I basically had to figure out for myself, that's not enjoyable for me. I like the challenge of multiple brands and entrepreneurship and trying to figure it out. That was fun for me.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's been a wonderful experience to meet all these different brands and work in different industries.
So what are the biggest trap doors that if you could go back 2 years and you're talking to somebody who might be listening or watching? We're on the YouTube, by the way. I don't know if anybody knows that. Always off brand YouTube. What if you look back, right? You always hindsight 2020. If I could do it over again, what would I there's some things I'm sure you could change, not bad regrets, but if you're talking to somebody who's just entering this thing, what are a couple trap doors you want to avoid? Anything?
Yeah, I mean, early on, if you got a severance, that's going to afford you some time, but you got to find clients fast, and it's not going to happen overnight. I had a conversation with a friend that I had loosely known through the industry in 2023. They just introduced me to a client last month that I just signed to be a full service Amazon client. So like these things do take time to materialize, but like that networking continues to pay off. But early on, if you pigeonhole yourself a little too much into like, I'm only gonna do this one service for clients, you might find it really difficult to grow quickly. Like be more open to doing whatever they need for you, and like you got to be willing to get your hands dirty early on. Like no one wants you to come in and design their whole marketing plan. Like they want you to fix one thing about their business. And with Amazon, I think there's a lot of brands that are struggling to find growth or profitability or understand why their business is growing or failing. And so I would come in and help them figure out incrementality and work through that. So yeah, lots of opportunities. But if you think too simply on one service, then you might find it harder to find new clients.
You got to be, we talked about this before you hit record, right? When you're starting out, you're bootstrapping, right? You got your dollar bills, baby. You got mouths to feed. You got a nut to crack. You got to bootstrap, and you got to probably make some decisions that now you could afford to say no to, but you just kind of do what you got to do. You don't understand the pricing. I think that's another big thing with consulting, right? Is the elusive, well, how much do I charge? Do I charge hourly? Do I charge monthly? I think there's a huge array, and I'm not going to sit here and ask you, Jeremy, what's the right price? Because I have experienced like it's just so different sizes of companies, it's just all over the board.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the mistakes that some people make will be trying to sell an hourly contract and expecting their client to drive what those hours should be applied for. But you're selling expertise in your field, and it's not about the amount of hours you're going to be working for that client. It's about the amount of time you're going to be saving them applying the wisdom that you've gained in the industry for many years and your experience. And if you're someone who's been working for a brand and gotten really involved in marketing or retail media or social or email marketing or SMS, like that is a pretty unique skill. There's a lot of people with those skills at the agency, on the agency side, but for someone that's worked within the walls of a brand, knows how to talk to a finance department and work with an operations team, there's a lot of value that you can bring in understanding how the brand works, but then also the retail media and being that liaison, helping to manage their agency partners. So it's not just about how many hours you're putting in, it's about how much time you're saving them from not making the wrong decisions on different agencies or different tech contracts that they're going to sign up for. You're saving them time, not putting time in.
I can't tell you how many times we were chit-chatting about all this stuff, and maybe we'll go there next. But I'm just saying is so many brands go for the shiny object. They go and try. I'm all for testing, right? I think testing, but you have to assess the risk of the test. And they're just like, oh, well, I heard this is great, so I hired this guy for $15,000 to come in and do one A+ page or whatever. I'm exaggerating, by the way, and there's a lot of people that do phenomenal work, so I'm not disparaging that. But for a lot of brands, it's like, well, bro, like your PDP, like the most basic shit is not done properly, or even your PPC or whatever. Like that's great, but let's go work on a couple other things before and they just they hire all this stuff that's great, but they're not maybe at their journey, right? They're just a tiny little toddler and they don't need that yet. So I think that's also, I fulfilled when I can veer them off that. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, a lot of brands need help just deciding what's the most important thing to focus on.
Yes.
And there's a lot of agencies out there that are well-meaning, but they're going to try to sell you the full kit and caboodle, and you've got to focus on what matters. And a lot of, I work with brands, and a lot of times their agencies only on contract to manage media. And you can't solve everything in e-commerce with media and, optimizing your sponsored ads or your DSP. Yes, that's important, but a lot of times it's everything else playing together. How are you planning promotions? How are you managing inventory and not spending that media on products that are about to sell out? And how are you thinking about organic rank and the sales that you're acquiring from that? So it's a little bit different with every brand. I think it's no fault of the agencies because they're trying to run a process, but a lot of times that process looks pretty similar for all of their clients.
Understandably, right? They need a repeatable process that can make efficiencies, so it leads to profitability and good service. So you and I were talking about this, like there's phenomenal agencies and now there's a bazillion of them. Yeah. And they do really good work at trying to deliver the highest level of service they can. It's not easy. I did it. It's actually really, really hard.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of times I'm helping reset expectations. When I work with a brand, they have an agency and I'm getting involved to help manage them and not just think about vanity advertising metrics, but thinking about how many new to brand customers did we acquire last month? What were the mechanisms that drove those new to brand customers to the brand? Each of these categories is different. One of the first things that I love to talk about with the brand to just level set with them, including their agency, is what percentage of this category is branded search versus non-branded search? And there's a couple ones that are heavily branded. I worked with a beverage client and it's a soda product. And when there's not a ton of non-branded search in the soda category. No one's searching for Diet Cola, right, or Diet Coke or Diet Pepsi.
Right.
And so thinking about that differently from another category like air fryers, not a lot of people go to that category with a specific air fryer.
Yeah, right.
An air fryer, they saw it in a recipe. So the approach to the category is different. And, some brands play in multiple different categories and it's a totally different landscape within each of those. And just thinking differently in that way, like what does it take to win? If it's a very branded category, you've got to drive your own branded search. So you might be thinking more upper funnel, offsite, DSP. If there's a lot of non-branded search to be won, you better really be thinking about SEO and your content and winning those non-branded terms, because it might be 80% of search volume is tied up in 5 search terms.
Okay, so my that hits you hit a nerve. We work with a lot of really small unknown brands. They don't have big distribution. There's no brand search. Okay. And they're in very high competitive non-brand category. And what I have to tell them, which again is hurtful, and I say this with love in my heart to them, you can't afford to compete with non-branded at the level you think you should. Could you maybe someday? Sure. But I'm talking huge categories where it's just like, it's impossible. They can't afford it. They're small little companies. Am I out of my mind, Jeremy? Level set me.
Absolutely. I mean, back in the early days, yeah, these keywords were 10 cents per click. And yes. I think a lot of people still have that hope that they can get this extreme value out of Amazon and bidding on sponsored ads. It's not the case. It's like free market, and these keywords have set their value based on how much return that they give to the company. And so, but in a lot of cases, it doesn't make sense. Trying to bid for air fryer is going to be a very, very expensive term.
Coffee's another. We worked with these coffee brands. I'm like, what you're talking? I'm not kidding. $7 a click.
Yeah. Oh, dog treats.
How much are you going to go for? How long is that going to last?
Dog treats is laughable. I've seen it over $20 per click, and these are like $7 ASP items.
Yes.
The key is, what are those long tail keywords that you can own, or how are you driving people to Amazon with your brand in mind first? A lot of the success that I'm seeing now is like combining social with e-commerce.
This is what we were talking before, and we're 22 minutes in or whatever, but it doesn't matter. I love your perspective, because we were kind of sharing a brain, because I've gotten to do some work where I'm looking overall with the brand, these mid-market brands, and they're looking at agencies and their needs are changing. It's not just Amazon, because to your point, I have been saying this for a little while now. I'm more obsessed what's happening off Amazon than I am on Amazon in so many cases, because Amazon, depending on the things, to your point, I'm doubling down. Like, it's a transaction. Come on, kids. It's like, you're not going to go grab this and grab that. It's not top of funnel unless you're summer jubileer. You can't full funnel jubileer. They're going to buy it. They're there to buy it for things. You got them off Amazon somewhere else.
Yeah, I think every brand in 2025 should be looking at their social budget and their DSP budget as interchangeable. What works better at getting someone to go to Amazon and make a purchase? And it's going to vary by category. If you've got a really cool gizmo that is going to like go viral on TikTok, that might make more sense than if you have some sort of commodity. But social can be so effective. And here's why I think TikTok traffic to Amazon, there's a lot of talk of like TikTok traffic, like the Amazon algorithm just loves it. I don't think it's because TikTok is the domain sending the traffic. I think what happens is that the traffic coming from TikTok is extremely pre-qualified to purchase that product. So that traffic boosts your conversion rate. And what does Amazon care about for organic rank? Conversion rate. But you sit there.
Hold on. I got to give you something for that. Wait, is it not playing? Oh. I don't know how many times a week I say conversion and sales in the last 180 days. It is over 40% of the algorithm, the big mysterious black box. It's always been that. It's always going to be that.
Yeah.
Come on.
It is a mysterious black box, but it's not that hard to figure out. And
thank you.
What does Amazon want to do? You type in a word, Amazon wants to show you a product that you're most likely to purchase, because that's how they make money, when they sell products. And so if we can game that a little bit by sending pre-qualified traffic. Because what happens on TikTok, you look at these videos, there's an influencer that tells you everything you need to know about it. So if you swipe to, click that link and go to the product page, you've mostly already decided that you want it.
Yes.
And that is, vastly different from the person that clicked a search results page on the product, and they're still kind of discerning, do I want this or not? So that's where because if you don't want the product, you just scroll to the next video on TikTok and you never register as a session, which then goes into the denominator and hurts your conversion rate.
That's why I joke about attribute bullshit, but it's true, not because people don't want to know exact attribution. And you were on this years ago at the big brands or whatever, this whole last click attribution. That's why you were looking at LTV, you were looking at 12-month periods, which this is, I know we're kind of just like here and there and everywhere in this conversation, but that's how we roll. Because that's back to your job and what you're getting clients of managing and understanding what they want and what they're supposed to get from an agency. What I'm getting is, you and I had kumbaya years ago about patience. And I understand patience is a rarefied, right, endangered species when I got to hit a number every quarter. But this is how the machine now, at this big maturity, and there's no hacks and tricks and whatever. It's freaking doing the basics, playing the game, and it's patience. Is it not, Jeremy?
For sure. I mean, back to your example about coffee, it's a very expensive keyword, because you know that if you sell one bag of coffee, there's a high percentage likelihood that you're going to sell them 2 or 3 or 4 in the next 12 months. And your competitors know that. So they're willing to pay up a $7 click. And then maybe every 4 clicks, they paid $28 to acquire that coffee purchaser. But on average, of all those one-off purchasers and your loyal customers, you're getting $150 a year from that customer. That's still a good deal. $28 to acquire someone that spends $150. That's what you need to think about when if you're trying to approach those high cost keywords. And that's hard. That's where
it's hard. It's hard to swallow. It's not, the CFOs do not like it.
Yeah. Agencies are hired to optimize your sponsored ads, but if they spend on coffee, they're going to get a really bad ROAS, and that doesn't look good and makes a lot of clients unhappy. So they will probably back off of that. But you have to give them that confidence that actually that's a really good investment for us. We acquired new brand agnostic coffee purchasers into our brand. We know we've got a great product and they come back and purchase it, but you got to calculate that. You've got to have that confidence, and you can go back to the CFO and say, our ROAS is really low. It's 25 cents, but here's why it works. That's probably where Summer's getting her top of funnel budget.
See, this is why we quote you. Jeremy Dodge, everybody drink.
Yeah.
That's a nice cocktail too. That sounds like a real good one.
That sounds like a Pabst Blue Ribbon poured into a cup. John Love. That's great.
Okay, so get you out of here on this is like I always say, steal that. But where are we today from your purview, working with brands in various industries and various categories? I mean, I think there's some interesting shit about to go down in this whole agency brand continuum, if you want to say, the arc. AI is a threat. Yes, we're thinking about that at Quickfire because we're teeny tiny. We deal with people, but we're trying to go, okay, where's our add value there? How do we understand this? How do we position ourselves so we're still valuable? But where do you see in a lot of your work is trying to match the right brand with the right agency and then also manage the agency? Where are we and where do you think we're going?
Yeah, I do that a lot. I get a lot of brands come to me and they're not happy with their agency. My first response is, let's make it work with your agency. And a lot of times we're just not managing the agency or setting the right expectations and giving them those goalposts of, we want new to brand customers, not just ROAS. And so more often than not, that's what I'm focused on helping them with and making sure they're using the full tech stack. I do help run a lot of RFPs and do some matchmaking to different agencies. However, agencies are expensive. My rule of thumb is don't use an agency for bandwidth. you need to be using an agency for expertise. If you're just using them for bandwidth, you could bring that in-house.
That's a juicy nugget right there. That is a juicy nugget.
And the tools that the agencies use are available to brands too. And if you want more control, then, I'd be happy to help your brand take that in-house, create a center of excellence. It's still complicated, and it takes an expert to run Amazon ads well, but it's getting a lot easier to do with the right tools. You have the right tools in place to do it. And so I think it's worth considering. I think, seeing what DSP and Performance Plus can do for us, it's not as complicated. I don't want to say agencies are unnecessary. Like I said, the first thing is, let's make this work with your agency. They probably do have expertise. Almost every agency out there has been, led by some very, very experienced, smart people. Sometimes it's a matter of just pulling them into your account to think a little bit more strategically about it. But yeah, it's, I think more brands should be thinking about, can I do this myself? I want to have someone sitting next to me that I can adjust budgets and adjust keywords, on a whim. There's a lot of game of telephone between you and an agency. And if you can do that in-house, I think brands can be a lot better.
Now, do you think, this is such a disclaimer because every situation is different, but when I have brands who have the ability to take their ad management, running their, let's say just Amazon ads for specific, they want to bring that in-house. Sometimes I caution them, and again, I'd like your opinion. I'm like, okay, that's great. And yes, there's a bunch of tools and we could do that, but you got to think long-term. This is a big investment and you have to have somebody who has the experience. At the same time, I also caution, say, God, that is changing so fast. That's where I'm kind of like, that's where you have a third party, a trusted third party partner that can keep up with all of the shit that's nonstop going on. Now, how do you feel about that?
I think that's absolutely valid. Yeah, it's moving, it's changing. And if you've got an agency that is looking across 100 clients, they're going to see these things and they're going to apply those learnings to your brand. And so it does take an expert. But I think for some of the smaller brands, like an agency shouldn't be the only option. I agree. I'm just saying, if they want to just advertising alone, sometimes I'm like, okay, but when you live inside a box, you don't understand what's going on around you. You're not as in tune with it sometimes. And that's honestly a big value of agencies. Again, I'm a little biased here because the invoice doesn't tell you just all the invaluable information you gain from working with multiple clients in different categories at different levels. It's just, there's an intangible value that isn't in the invoice that actually saves you money. That's my agency pitch for the day. It's perspective. Yeah. And don't get me wrong. I operated as an agency too, and I run media for my clients. And so for different business setups, it makes sense, but those tools are available to us. And if my client wants to take over and manage internally, kind of foolish on my part, but I'm happy to help them do it. And
exactly,
you need to have a team in place. You can't just have, a part of, someone's week to be managing Amazon ads. They've got to be all in. So there's a certain size where it's going to make sense
100%
for brands and not others.
Jeremy, where can people find you? Where can they want to reach out to you? They need your help. They need the brilliant brains of the Horse Consulting. How do we get to you?
Find me on LinkedIn, Jeremy Dodge. Shoot me a direct message. I'll get back to you as soon as I can.
Thanks for coming on. You might be the biggest contributor. You might won you've been on here many, many times. I know there's been a lot of other serial guests, but I appreciate that, Ted. I didn't get to play the keyword game though. No, and in fact, now Summer and Haley are going to be so frustrated and pissed off that they couldn't make this recording. You'll be back. They've already texted me. They're like, "What now? You have to have him back. We'll have you back again with the full crew." We're thinking about in development because what's that keyword is going to be obsolete soon. So we have to come up with what's that chat? What's that prompt? What's that? We got to come up with the game has to evolve because of these LLMs, because of this stupid new AI thing that I have to deal with.
I like it. The Rufus game. Let's record it. So let me know. Be back soon.
All right, we'll talk to you later. And that's going to do it for this little quickie here. Remember, I know Jeremy, and we have him on. Why? Because people matter, and you're listening to Always Off Brand. Share, like, do you, boo. Do all the things you got to do. Bye.
Hey there, this is Haley from Quickfire, and they want me to read this so you know what this podcast is part of and how to find out more if you want. Always Off Brand is a production of Quickfire LLC and a part of the Learn and Laugh series on the Quickfire Podcast Network. For more information, go to quickfirenow.com. Have a good one, and thanks for listening.